In this video, we're talking about 17 things in n8n you probably didn't know about. Let's get into this right now. The first one has to do with webhooks here. So essentially what webhooks do is they receive data from third-party applications, like the things you can see on the side here. Now, the problem is that with webhooks in n8n, by default, they're set to a get method, which means that if you're sending data into n8n from another source, it's almost always sent from post, which means that if you're waiting for the results to come in, we can go ahead and test this one more time. You're going to be waiting a very long time. That very long time is probably forever, because since the methods aren't aligned, it's never going to receive the data. It's actually going to draw an error, like you can see down here. Maybe my face is blocking that. But essentially, by default, like almost every time you're using webhooks, you always have to set it to post in almost all instances. I've actually never set it to anything other than post. So in order to make this work, we need to change the HTTP method here to post and then listen for the test event, send it back. And now we can see down here that we have the results coming in and we can continue on with the workflow. This took me quite a bit of time to actually figure out, just because I've actually never seen webhooks being accepted as GET before. And so the next thing that I want to talk about here is that you can actually connect n8n into all these other AI agents. So one example is you could connect it into ChatGPT. Now keep in mind, you will need to be on the Plus plan to do this, and the blueprints for this will be down below in the description for free. It's actually going to be linked to another video with a step-by-step tutorial on how to build this out. But essentially, I could ask ChatGPT, first of all, by uploading a picture of a receipt here, to parse this into Google Sheets. I could go ahead and send this off. It's going to take that request, and then it's automatically going to strip all the information from this receipt, like the line items. It's going to give me a quick summary down below and then just confirm. And I'm just going to say confirm here, and it will initiate the process of sending data between ChatGPT and n8n into Google Sheets. So you can see it's talking to a connector right now. Then once this is done, I just need to confirm that I want to send the data off. It's going to hit this webhook here and then send data into Google Sheets. And it'll also give us a confirmation that it's been completed. And then within Google Sheets, we can see the data coming in right here, which is really nice. The next thing that we could do is also connect in Claude. So for example, let's say that I wanted to schedule a calendar event on Claude, and I have a video with free blueprints for this as well. I could just go into Claude here and I could say, can you please schedule a event on my calendar for tomorrow at 5 p.m. to cook dinner. And same kind of deal, I'll send off the message. It's just going to confirm the details, and then once everything's good to go, it'll just ask me to send the data through. I'll allow once, and then that will send it through this MCP server. In a nutshell, this allows you to connect n8n into other external AI agents like Claude. And then we can see the event on my calendar right here for tomorrow at 5 p.m. to cook dinner. So that's also really cool to connect in other applications. The next thing that I want to talk about here is HTTP requests. Now, you'll know that if you use n8n for long enough, they have a ton of integrations, but a lot of the times they don't have the integrations that you're looking for. And they only have about 1,048 here. So if we were to go back here, some common ones would be like Instagram is missing or Pinterest is missing. And these have user bases of hundreds of millions of people. So there's tons of other things that aren't here as well. So a lot of the times with HTTP requests, what we have to do is we have to build out these integrations. An HTTP request, you can think about it as just like building out your own custom integration in n8n. All of these are kind of like native integrations that the n8n team has already built out on our behalf. And so if we think about this particular integration here, there's a lot of boilerplate that goes into it, like a URL, like a method, like headers and body. And if you're not familiar with this kind of stuff, it is quite difficult. Now, fortunately, we have this import curl over here button, and we can just essentially automatically import all of this data in, which is super nice. So I have like some sample documentation from Appify here, which is a web scraping application. We could just essentially copy this curl here. So we could go ahead and copy this. And then what we could do is we could come back hit the import curl, paste it in, and then all of a sudden, in a matter of a couple seconds, we have the URL, we have the method, we have the headers, we have the body down below. And so that's just a nice way to speed up the process of building inside n8n. The next thing that I want to talk about here is, if you guys haven't taken a look at my community already, I launched this maybe like a month or two ago, but this is a great place to learn all different types of things regarding AI automation, like n8n, or like other applications as well. We have weekly calls every single week. So if you ever get stuck with problems regarding AI automation, you can always jump on calls and I'll help you debug whatever you're going through in like 5 minutes or less. You also get access to all my blueprints. And really the goal of this is to either like automate your entire business or make money using AI automation. But moving on past that, the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to n8n is that you can set up self-hosting in like 3 minutes. And here's 3 options to do that. Hostinger, you can set this up. It costs at a starting point $6.99. And then you can kind of scale up as you need more power and CPU and all that kind of stuff. Same kind of thing with Railway. You can have a one-click deploy here and get this set up in like 3 minutes. This is $5 a month to get started, and then you can kind of go up from there. So it's a bit cheaper than Hostinger. But another option is Alessio, and I think that this is like free to get started, and then you can just pay for your usage as well. So those are 3 ways. And not only that, but if you go over to the n8n website and you go to the pricing, one of the biggest pains of cloud hosting is the fact that not only is it more expensive, but the bigger thing is that you only get 5 active workflows per month on the lower plan, 15 active workflows per month on the pro plan, and then 2.5K executions. And you can burn through this really, really quickly if you're not on a self-hosted plan. And it's never a good idea to contact any software company because you know you're going to be paying way more than the other listed prices here. So obviously, self-hosted is a great option if you guys want to get the most out of n8n. The next thing that I want to talk about here is humans in the loop. So I have this workflow here. Essentially what it does is it automatically labels all of my emails that come through my inbox, okay? So I can label them as like personal up top here, or sales, or accounting, or Google Calendar, and all that kind of stuff. Another thing I could do is I could send off emails to people. So maybe, for instance, I want to automatically send off an email, but you know, it's hard to like just give 100% autonomy to AI, because what happens if it's a really important email, you have AI, it sends it off, it makes a wrong decision. And this is just like a microcosm for a larger issue where AI is not perfect and maybe you want some human control. And that's where this, where the human in the loop option comes in here, where you can actually have a say. You can accept it or you can reject it. So maybe if you approve it, it automatically sends the email. Or, for example, if you don't approve it, it doesn't. So we'll go ahead and test this workflow out. And it's going to go down this sales path here. It's going to generate a response. And it's going to hit Telegram, okay? And if I open up Telegram over here, it has now asked me, hey, do I approve this message or do I not approve this message? And if I approve it, it will send off the email. If I don't approve it, it will not send off the email. So I can open up this, and then essentially it's just saying, hey, the email has been sent off, which is really, really cool. The next thing that I want to talk about here is the fact that you can actually have mock and pinned data. So one of the cool features about n8n, which I really like, especially coming from make.com, is the fact that you can easily mock and pin data. So for example, instead of like traditionally for a workflow like this, every single time I want this to run, I have to wait for an email to come through. And obviously like that sucks, because just the process of waiting a minute or two for an email to come through could like cumulatively add up to like an extra 30 minutes, an hour. Obviously, it's a lot of wasted time. But with this, what you can do is you can first of all pin the data up top here, so that instead of waiting for new results to always come through, you can just pin sample data of a past run and consecutively use that as you're testing, so that the whole process of building workflows goes so much faster. You can also unpin that data when you're ready. And the cool thing is you can also edit this data as well. So I could go in and I could edit things. And why I think this is such a big deal is like if you take a workflow like this in n8n, it goes first to the text classifier, and then it's like, what label should I give this? And if it goes down the sales path, that's great. I have access to like all this data on the right hand or left hand side here. But if I go down another path, I don't have the data. So the problem then becomes like, if I wanted to edit anything on here, then I'd have to get the data to funnel through this particular path. And then imagine having to wait for new emails that actually match that, or having to create the email to match that. And it would just add on so much time. But with something like this, what I could do is I could come in here, edit the data, and I could come down to like this text, and I could say, this is a sales message. This is an accounting message. And why that matters is because in this text classifier, I'm just feeding in the result that I want it to go down, just as like test data. So I'm like, hey, if this is a sales message, it's going to be like, we should go down the sales path. If this is an accounting message, probably go down the accounting path. So it really just expedites the process of building out workflows inside n8n. The next thing that I want to talk about here is the fact that you can have multiple triggers within n8n. Again, this is pretty game changing. So for example, take a service-based business. This is my business. We do AI automation, and we help clients automate their entire business, saving them hours and hours and hours every single day. Usually the lifeblood of a service-based business is inquiring on a quote form like this. So somebody fills out a quote form to essentially, receive a quote for your business. But the issue then becomes, like, let's say you get pretty savvy with your marketing and you have different pages for SEO, you have different pages for Facebook ads, Google ads, and all these kind of things. And maybe what you want to do is you want to track where these leads are coming from, because you want to invest potentially more money into the lead generation sources that actually make you the most money. And so what would suck is if you had to create a workflow for every single form submission here. But with n8n, all of a sudden now what you can do is you could have, like, let's say 10 SEO pages with 10 different forms, and then 10 Google ad pages, because maybe you want to split test the keywords, or you want to split test the locations or whatever. You can go ahead and do that, and so on and so forth. So you could add in so many different triggers here, and it all just funnels into the same workflow instead of having like 30 workflows to handle the same request, essentially. The next thing that I want to talk about here is data types within n8n. I think this is super, super important. So I just have like some sample data that I created here. And essentially, here's the data. It's just a mock client, Jane Doe. And what you can do here in n8n using this edit fields option is you can manipulate the data so you can change the type. On the left-hand input side, we have these kind of like icons telling us which data type it is. So the A is text, the pound sign is number, the list is, well, an array or a list, and so on and so forth. But we can change the data types here. So all of a sudden I could, for example, change a list, which is this, and I could turn it into text. So all of a sudden this list here now becomes the list here. So you can actually see that it has these quotation marks around it. And we know that if it has the quotation marks, it's now becoming text. We could also change this particular is active here to Boolean. And so we're changing it from text now to Boolean, which is really powerful stuff. And so on and so forth. You could change numbers to text, text to numbers, all that kind of stuff. And why this kind of stuff matters, let me give you two examples, is because if I was, for example, to add two numbers, okay, and these numbers are both text numbers, we can see it's the A, meaning that it's text. We add this together, 34 plus 34 equals 34, because it's text. And it's like the same way if I said hello and world and I added them together in text, it would be hello world. It wouldn't be like, some multiplication. It's looking at this like text, whereas in text, what you're used to seeing is actually multiplying these numbers together to give you 68. And so that's the power of data manipulation inside n8n. Another example here would be like if you have the age, which is actually, where is it here? The age, which is 34, and the age, again, in different data types, it will draw this error here, which means that it's not going to, like, it's the whole workflow is going to shut off because you're trying to compare a text field to a number field. So a couple ways we can do this is we could convert types where required, and then all of a sudden this would work. It would turn them both into numbers or both into strings, and so it can pass again. And so that's really important because I find, consulting hundreds of people every single month, this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks for most people. The next thing I want to talk about is altering the dates here. So a lot of the times, like if I was just to create a new field and I was to call this test and write in today's date, this is kind of the output down here. And it's not that pretty, but we can output it however we want to output it. So for example, I could change the date like this to the 19th of April, 2025. And how I do that is through this long string of text here. And the solution is not to code this yourself because that would be a nightmare. The solution is just to go over to ChatGPT and enter in a prompt like this. Could you please format this now function in n8n to the format that I want in JavaScript? And it's going to say, sure, Jono, no problem. Here's the date, or here's the function. And then I can just copy this and then I can just paste it right in here. In a matter of a couple seconds, I get the date how I want it to be. The next thing I want to talk about here is rate limiting. This is really, really powerful. So let's talk about, first of all, what rate limiting is and then the solution. So take Google Sheets, for example. And this is not like a Google Sheets problem. This is just a software problem in general. You can only send a specific amount of requests in a specific time interval. So in Google Sheets, they're going to limit you to sending 300 requests per minute. If you were to send 301 requests per minute, all of a sudden it would shut off the whole workflow and it would give you a 429 error or just an error saying, hey, you can no longer do this because you've exhausted the resource or you sent too many requests. The reason why they do this is because they don't want hackers coming in and sending and killing their server by sending like 1 million requests per second, and then the whole server shuts down. And so this is why this exists, rate limiting. And this is for any notable software that you're probably going to be using inside n8n. And in order to counteract that, what you do is you set up a loop here. And this loop will go through every single one individually, one by one. You set a wait step here for 1 second or however long you want. And then you know that in a minute, there's 60 seconds. So this is only going to reach 60 executions per minute, which is far less than the 300 executions you're allowed per minute. And so this is an easy way to automatically add tons of different results in here without overloading the system and resulting in errors. So that's a really cool tip if you're dealing with large data sizes. The next tip I want to talk about here is the wait for webhook inside n8n. I think this is really, really powerful. So let's say you have this workflow here, okay? And you need to connect into an external resource here. Specifically in this example, I'm connecting into Go High Level because I want to generate an invoice. And then I want to send that invoice to somebody. And this is what that invoice looks like. So we're sending this in real time. Problem is that what happens if you need to execute this, but you don't want the rest of this workload to run until that invoice has been successfully generated. So you don't want it to immediately go to the next result. You want it to wait here until that invoice has been sent and then only continue the rest of the workflow after that invoice has been sent and processed. And so this is where this wait step comes in, which is on webhook call. So it's going to resume. How this works is that in real time, so when I run this workflow, okay, in real time, it's going to generate this URL. And this is going to be completely unique. It's going to be different every single time. Essentially, what we need to do is set up a webhook to send data back over here. Okay. And only when data is received at this webhook, then it will continue running or executing the rest of this particular workflow. And so what we can do here is with this HTTP request, we can use this resume URL down here. And what this execution.resume URL is it is the real-time webhook that we generated here. So this is how we generate this. And then what I can do with that is I can pass it into this HTTP module so that inside of Go High Level, then I can send a webhook back. And that webhook is going to be what I passed here. And then once, it executes this workflow and it sends the webhook back, which will be received here, then it will start the workflow again. And so anytime you're dealing with processing information in an external app, but you need that information to be completed and processed 100% before moving on to the next step, this is a great way to say, hold on a second, we're going to stop running this until the action in some third-party application is completed and we've been notified via a webhook that it has been completed, and then we can move on afterwards. Another popular use case for this would be if you're doing voice AI calling. So for example, maybe you don't know if that call would be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 seconds. And so what you can do is you can set it up in a way where once the call's done, it automatically sends data back to this webhook to say, hey, the call's done. Now you can go grab the transcript. Now you can go take certain actions. The next thing that I want to talk about here is that you can do essentially the exact same thing, but with a form submission. So instead of a webhook, you could have a form submission. So let's say, for example, you want to email somebody a form to quickly fill out. You could wait until they filled out the form to move on to the next step. So I can test this workflow out again. And in the same vein, I have this resume form URL. What this resume form URL is it's the exact link to this form. So if I open this up, the link that I generated is this, which is the form. And I can send that via email to somebody like this. And now they have access to clicking on that form submission, and I could just fill in some information and click submit here, and then this workflow will be completed. So it's going to wait until I complete that particular form. And only once I've completed that form, then it will move on to the next stage. The next thing that I want to talk about is actually still on forms here, which is the fact that they have recently updated their forms to include two features, which I absolutely love. The first one is that you can now have hidden fields within forms. The second thing is that you can pass in URL parameters. What I mean by that is I could go ahead and test this form. Okay, we have a blank generic form here. I could add in the URL parameters to autofill in information. URL parameters pass additional context to pages. So for example, I could go into the URL and I could hit question mark here. And then I could do email equals test. And all of a sudden, it's going to get the value test from the URL parameter here. So let's just break this down one more step. This is the actual URL. This is where you direct traffic to. Anything past the question mark is going to be additional context that you pass to the page. This doesn't actually change the routing or where you're sending somebody. And this happens in key value pairs. The key is going to be found in the form. So it's going to find, email is email, and then it's going to pass in the value for email, which is test. Okay, I could also pass in jono@gmail.com, and it's going to pass that in. I could also do first name and last name. How you add additional key value pairs is hitting the and sign in between them. And I could do first name equals Jono. And again, it's going to fill that in with Jono. And then I could also do the same thing with the last name as well. Why this is super beneficial as a deadly combo is that you could hide this email field, and then you could essentially pass in somebody's email to a hidden field here. And if that field was hidden, so let's just say, for example, I was to go ahead and hide this field, you're still passing in the parameter here. But the distinction is that all of a sudden, they can't change the email. So if you were to update somebody in your CRM based on their email, they couldn't put in a secondary email or a burner email or their spouse's email or their business partner's email, or they couldn't misspell their email. So all of a sudden you can find people very easily using automation based on the email, but they don't have the option to change it on the form, which is really, really powerful. The next thing I want to talk about is that you now have the ability to create folders within n8n. So you can go into your personal project or whatever extra option you have on the sidebar here, and you can create folders. So this is kind of what a folder looks like. You can add whatever other workflows in there. Why I think this is powerful is because now you could add in collections. Say you have an AI agent that has 5 subflows, you could add that right into this folder to keep yourself super organized. So for example, I could go ahead and create my MCP folder here, and then I could add in, as an example here, maybe this main AI agent. So I could add this into the folder MCP, and then I could add in this sample sub agent into the same folder as well. And this is just a nice way to keep yourself organized. So all of a sudden you don't have piles of automations building up like this, because obviously that's a lot to deal with. And the last thing that I want to cover in this video has to do with Google Sheets, specifically the trigger in Google Sheets. Now, I really don't like the trigger in n8n for Google Sheets. And the reason is let's say, for example, you had a Google Sheet like this and you updated something here. Or more specifically, let's say you had like some form of a checkbox here. And every time this checkbox is updated, you want to pull in all the entire row inside of n8n and then maybe execute this. Because this could be like a client with like Jono, for example, and Catlif, and then maybe he has his email here, and then you take this email and you send off an email. The problem with this is that all of a sudden when you test this workflow out, all this does is it just pulls in all of the data from every single row. And so like, obviously it says Jono here in 1 and 2 and 3, but this could be like Bob, Stacy, Cassandra. The point is that you never would know which row was updated, which is problematic because it almost makes this whole trigger 100% useless in my opinion, and it's something that I would never ever use. So the workaround is that we have to create our own webhook. So what we can do is build this out in a couple of minutes. It's actually really simple. So coming back in here, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into extensions and app scripts. Now, as it implies, you do have to write a script. This is really simple and you don't need to know a line of code. I'm going to attach this in the link down below, but essentially we can copy this whole script in here, and we have to do two things. One is we have to paste it, and number two is we just have to find our webhook URL, which is right here, okay? We need to copy this, and then we need to paste this in here. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to keep the quotation marks there, and then paste it back in and save. Then we're done. That's it. Lastly, we just need to add a trigger in here. The trigger is essentially saying, when do you actually want us to fire off this particular script here? And the answer is when we change anything on the form, we want it to update. And specifically, we want it to send data over to this URL here. So in the trigger section, and my face is blocking this, there's the add a trigger button here, and we can just essentially keep everything the same. The only difference is we want to select the event type to on edit and click save. Now, if you're like me, you're going to get an error down here. This might just be because I have ad blocker or whatever, but the solution is just to click save again. I'm going to log into my account here. And it's going to say, Google hasn't verified this app. That's because I'm not an app developer. I haven't gone through the process to get verified by Google. All you have to do is click advanced, go to the untitled project, and then give it permission. All this is doing is it's just essentially sending data from your Google spreadsheet here into n8n. So now what we can do is we can hit listen for test event, and just keep in mind the HTTP method has to be post here. So we're going to listen to the event, and then I can check this button off here. And now on the right-hand side, we're going to get tons of data. Specifically, we're going to get all of the row values. So we just got in every single row here, which is super, super nice. And then we also have we have the old and the new value that was assigned to it. We have the column start, we have the row start, so we can actually identify this particular cell as well. And so for that reason, I think this is super beneficial, because when it comes to Google Sheets, this is one of the most popular applications out there. This is probably used more than almost anything else. So I wanted to cover this because if you're like me, you're going to be using this all the freaking time. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys want more content, more blueprints, and a roadmap to be able to make money using AI and automation, or to automate your entire business, I would recommend taking a look at the school community I've set up, because that's what it's all about. It's just helping people automate their whole business or to earn money using AI and automation. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, and bye-bye.